Hello everyone, Lloyd Moyer here. Today I am going to be working on this piece of spalted ash, and it's about 10 inches in diameter. It's about 6 inches deep right now as the blank is. We'll see what we can get done with it, see if I don't mess it up. I'm going to start by drilling out a hole in the center for the screw chuck. I have my trusty drill here that I have marked out for how deep the screw chuck is, and we'll just do that. Okay, I'm going to start by mounting this blank on my screw chuck. Turn it on, going very slowly, and just feed it onto the screw. Let the lathe do the work until it stops. And then you let it go, and then you lock the spindle down and tighten it up. Okay. Slightly larger, more uneven piece, I'm going to rough out with my deep fluted bowl gouge. Pieces that are uneven like this one is and a little bit heavier, I use the bowl gouge just because it has a little more heft to it. This piece seems pretty uneven, so I'm gonna be I'm going pretty slowly. The sun is, is hitting the lathe, so I can't tell you exactly how fast I'm going. 327. Also, never a bad idea to try and get the bark off. If you're going to take it off anyway, you just don't want it flying off. If it's going to come off easily. If it's not, it'll be fine. Yeah, that bark's on there pretty well. So what I'm really trying to get off right now is this corner is the one that's causing trouble. If you can speed the piece up a little bit, it makes a huge difference. See how slow I'm going, because the lathe isn't turning very fast, so this isn't making a very fast cut. And when you're watching what you're doing, you're watching the horizon. Oops. You didn't see that, did you? Keep your tool away from the piece. That was close. That's just about round up there. I never learned what's right-handed and what's left-handed when wood turning. So I just, whatever's comfortable is how I do it. If you're just learning, I recommend trying, holding it in the opposite hand to what's natural and trying, because it can be really useful to not have to turn around and tie yourself into knots to try and go in an opposite direction. There goes some bark. Pretty well round now. Yeah, just a little flat spot right there. But I should be able to take care of the flat side now. I'm going to pick up the spindle gouge just because it's a little lighter weight. And see if I can go a little faster. I can. Take it up to about 950 here. Again, I'm just trying to make it even and flat. Okay. So now everything is at least even. So I'm going to flatten off this bottom, and then I'll mark my where I want my chuck to go. Mark the diameter of my chuck, and we'll make a foot. Okay. There we are. So I have my dividers already set to my the diameter of my jaws. Lining the left side up with the right side, keeping the right side out of the wood. Do not make contact with the wood on the right side. This is just a pull cut that I'm doing here, and I'm cutting with right here, this edge right here on the tool. That is, it's a shear cut, but it's just a sort of an aggressive cut to take a lot of material out at once. Doesn't really give you a good finish or anything, but I don't need it to. Okay, then I'm going to take the spindle gouge, and you got to be right up on your side, right up on the side here, and you just go straight in. And once you're in, then you can open up a little bit. Forgot to close that back down again. A little careless on my part, but that's okay. I usually round that off a little bit right there anyway. And really all you need on the foot, you need a good corner, a good clean corner for the chuck jaws to seat nicely right there. Now, in thinking about the design of this bowl, this is going to be sort of a full-bellied, it's pretty deep but it's going to be a good food bowl, good container, fruit bowl or salad bowl. So I'm going to leave a relatively flat bottom, I think. Now this is a sort of a finishing cut, a shear cut. Going up around the curve. Yeah. That seems nice to me. Now the curve is going to come back and then come back around. That's just going to be the natural flow of it, I think. Use the scraper here to just even out the very, very bottom where the base springs out, where the bowl springs out from the base. And then I'm going to come around here and we'll finish the rest of the profile. See, I'm riding the bevel here, and then you just slowly turn the tool clockwise until the blade starts cutting, and then you go forward. And if you're pushing the tool into the wood, you're not sharp enough. You know, you have to, of course, you have to have a certain amount of force to move the tool forward. But if you really have to, if you're feeling yourself push into the wood, then the tool is probably not sharp enough because it's not cutting well enough. And if it's not sharp enough and not cutting well enough, you're not getting a good finish. You're not getting a good surface on the tool. Again, I'm watching what's going on along the top profile up here, more so than where the blade is cutting. All right. That's my profile. That's going to be my basic shape. A little flat right here. Not too bad. It's not a terrible cut either. For a piece of spalted wood, which is can often be very messy as far as tear out and things like that, it's not a bad surface I'm getting. I'm just going to shear cut a little bit with the scraper here. Remember that when you're shear cutting on the scraper, you want to be on the bottom half of the scraper. Good. That feels better. Still a little hump right there. Be particular about these things. All your little particularities. If you're being particular, it'll show by the time you're done. You'll be able to tell that you were paying extra special attention to this area or that area. By the time you're done, it will make a difference, I promise. Plus, it just gets to be habit then, and you don't have to worry about being particular. It's just how you are. It's how you create. That's good. That'll be fine. This is not a particularly nice surface. The spalting and the age of the wood, how old it is. Not old, it was dead to begin with. So it's not giving me a real nice surface, but it'll sand well enough. Now I'm just gonna clean up the top here. I was going to take this little lip off, but I think maybe, yeah, I think maybe it'll be fine there. I'm going to leave it right there. It'll be like, this is almost like a little pot. So I'm just going to take a nice, try and get a good surface on here with the spindle gouge. I find when you're changing direction, going from one kind of a curve to another, you either want to have a little groove or a little bead. And the reason for that is it makes it look like you did it on purpose, right? It's part of the design. It's not just exactly what I just did, which was, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it like that. So I'm going to put a couple of little grooves here. And if you do two grooves that are relatively close together and you round off in between, then what you have is a little bead. This is a piece of spalted wood, so it doesn't need a whole lot of decoration. The grain itself will give you plenty of decoration. But I think that'll be okay, just like that. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the base here so I can make it concave so that it'll sit on the outer edge of the base. A little bit high. Again, notice how slowly I'm making this cut. Especially when the wood is a little bit funky like this is, a slower cut will give you a much nicer surface. Raise the rest back up again because I'm going to go in with the scraper here. That's okay. And maybe a little, just a little decoration in here. Again, the way I think of this is I'm making it look like I did everything on purpose. You know, like it wasn't just accidental that the bottom got done. You know, it wasn't just an afterthought. Like I paid attention to the whole bowl. Yep, that'll do just fine. So now I'm just going to give this a rough sanding. Just going to sand with 120 grit here, and then I'm going to let the sun go down. I have great natural light here, but today and oftentimes just at this time of day, late afternoon, the sun comes right in and it gets very warm right here. I even got sunburn in the summertime. I think what I will also do is I will take care of sanding the rest of this, and then I will come back to you once it's done, and we'll do the inside together. Here we are a couple hours later, and I have indeed finished sanding the outside of this piece. Some of the grain is a little chewed up just because the wood was starting to rot. It was a little bug eaten, but that's okay. So I'm just going to put walnut oil on this. Sanding isn't very exciting, but sometimes it's fun to watch the finish go on. And of course, the spalted wood really soaks up the oil, which is a good thing because it also helps, the oil will help to stabilize that softer wood when it cures and hardens. With a piece like this that I really want to be sure that the coverage is good, I usually put the oil on when the lathe is not running, and then I will turn it on and to even everything out. And when I put the wax on, I'll melt the wax and stuff like that. This isn't a huge bowl, but it's not a little bowl either. I don't know, I think the biggest piece I've ever turned is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 feet around. Don't ask me what it was meant to be used for. I mean, I make practical pieces, so I don't know what you use. I made there was a piece of redwood that I made that was that size, plus it was deep, that my best friend wanted to make her mother wanted to make her Thanksgiving stuffing in it, and she always had a big crowd, so she wanted a really big bowl, and that one turned out really well. I had a big piece oak. I did a big piece of English walnut once that was really huge. But you don't, what do you use those for, you know? All right. Put some of the beeswax mixture onto this now. And you hold the rag up against it like this. It melts the wax and sort of lets the wax get down into the grain and into the wood. So you're polishing a little bit as well as you go here. I also find that sometimes the best thing to do, if you just can't get it into a spot, and your hands are already dirty, I just put a little oil right on my finger. Uh-oh. My little pumper is not pumping so well. What happened, I wonder? Worry about that later. All right. Now I'm just going to check and make sure that the foot fits into the chuck, which it will. And let's see if I can get this thing off of the screw chuck. Ugh. Yep. If you have the ability, I definitely recommend having several chucks, or at least having, one kind of chuck, but having several different jaws. And if you can have several chucks and you have the jaws put on them, it's really, really a time saver. All right. So now I'm going to start just by evening out the face of the bowl, and then I will get the depth gauge and figure out how deep we can go. Bigger pieces, I often will turn the speed all the way down before I start it. And then turn it up. This is my big bowl gouge. usually have this bowl gouge is it's a one-way gouge, and it comes with the handle, and then you buy replacement inserts, and it's double-ended. So it's not an inexpensive tool, but it also, because it's double-ended, you get to use a whole lot more of it. And I actually have one end ground with a fingernail grind, and then this is ground a little bit more traditionally, with the one side ground back a little bit more. So that's flat now. Let me get my depth gauge here. And my depth gauge, all it is a small drill bit that I have mounted into a handle. And all I do is I sort of line up where I want the bottom to be. And actually this bowl is going to be deeper than my depth gauge. Well, they're not by too much. And then you just drill in as deep as you need to go. And if you don't go in exactly straight, it shakes. If you see how I'm shaking, it's because I'm not going in entirely straight, but it's close enough, I think. So now when I get to the bottom of that hole, I know that I'm getting close. Now, I should be able to give myself a little bit more speed here. Just under 1,000. Really, all I'm doing here is I'm looking for the bottom of that hole. When you go in, when you enter, this is a great time to practice, because it doesn't really matter if you catch and it draws you back, but it's a good time to practice. You go in with the gouge turned way over on its side like this, and then once you're in, then you can open it up and go forward. Making a pretty good mess here too, I must say. I'm getting a little bit far out on the rest, so I'm gonna actually put in my bigger rest. Something else that's really useful, especially if you have a big lathe like I do, is that smaller rest is really useful. Because this is a foot long or something like that, and it's heavy, and it really gets in the way if you're trying to work on a you know, a little kind of dainty piece. It's great for big stuff like this, though. I think nope, thought I found the bottom of the hole, but I didn't. Now I found it. Now we found the bottom. All right. Now I just want to sort of, I'm going to mark where I want the edge of the rim to be. Remember, I have this little lip. And then the bowl is undercut. So, I'm going to do about to there. And then the bowl goes in, or out, sorry. Nice thing about having this sort of traditional ground bevel on this tool is, I don't know if you're noticing it, I'm sure you are, but it's making these great big fun giant shavings, which ash is great for also. Ash and cherry really make nice shavings. Dang it. There's a little crack in there. I'm going to fill that sooner rather than later. Spalted wood, unfortunately, often comes with little cracks that you don't necessarily notice right away. Let's see how we do with this. I really don't like this glue. Don't really care for using glue in general, but it's a, if you can't afford to buy all your wood and don't really want to do that kind of work anyway, you know, it's pretty hard to find completely perfect material all the time. You make do with what you can. understanding like that's the nature of the material that we work in. Let's see. I think that's going to be okay. We shall see. I forgot to check. Good there. We're good. You'll find that I am a person who likes to turn the lathe off and see how I'm doing more frequently than maybe somebody who's better at this than me. I don't know whether it's I'm insecure or I'm just always making sure. See? Yeah, this is all right. I'm getting a good wall thickness. I'm a little thinnest. I'm sort of thinnest there, which is where about how I want to be. Yep. That's just right. Okay. See, consistent wall thickness. I'm always talking about now, I'm thinking of consistent wall thickness. So I'm relatively thin here, and then I get a little thicker here because I'm not coming all the way out to go all the way in. Just a little ways, and then it goes back in down to here. I just don't feel like I need to come out so far in here, although I can come in. I'm going to do some right about here. Yeah, that's good. And that little cracked spot, I think that's going to be just fine. Yeah. So now I have my bowl scraper here that I use to do the very middle. Raise it up a little bit and I move it away just a hair so that I can I'm just above center, and then I can reach down so that so that you're facing down, which is, you hear people talking about a negative rake scraper. That's just a scraper that is cut in such a way that you get this kind of a cut while you're still sitting like this. That's all. Nothing wrong with it. I just don't really have a need for it. I'm usually holding a scraper, especially when I'm doing the inside. I'm holding the scraper up here. Let me turn this off just to be on the safe side. I'm usually holding the scraper up here by the ferrule with my finger on it, and with the handle all the way up under my forearm, which gives me a ton of support, especially when I'm reached out over the tool rest a bit, like I am right now. Trying to make it so you can see a little better though. My depth is good, but I'm a little wavy in the bottom there, so I just need to even that out. Lovely. I've got a little bit of a corner right here. Let's see if we can clean that up a bit. You got to be particular about these things. You're never going to turn a perfect curve or a straight line freehand without a little help. But you got to be particular. That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay. So now, see what we can do with sandpaper. And I think maybe like the outside, I will spare you most of the sanding. I'm going to start here with the 120. and then I'll spare you some of the other grits. I don't usually do anything too exciting when I'm sanding, so you're not going to miss much. One of the things that you can't see so well on camera, but that's interesting about working with spalted wood like this is it will sand differently. So the hardwood here that I'm putting polish on will sand at a different rate than the spalted wood over here. So what you end up with is a bowl that's not quite round and is never quite balanced because the densities of the two woods are so different. When you're done with it, it doesn't matter. Nobody will ever see it. Nobody will ever be able to notice it. Maybe you'll feel it in the way that the piece is sanded, but when it's turning, you notice it because all of a sudden it's like, hey, I turned this round and even, and now it's not. If you're particular about that, which you certainly can be, sometimes I am, you just have to hand sand the the two parts differently. But when it's a spalted piece like this, and maybe you can see how it's not perfectly round, that's why. But it's so close that when it's not spinning around really fast around a central axis, you're never going to know that piece is not perfectly round. So now some of the beeswax. Now, what this piece is, it's certainly matte, and the fact that it was spalted and starting to rot, you really can tell. You can feel the grain. You can feel the way that the wood had gotten a little bit spongy in places. It didn't get spongy, but spalting is much softer. So you can see it in the way the grain behaves. But that turned out pretty nicely. Let's take it out of here and see how it looks. There's the bottom. No chuck marks.